did you just see? Pause the video for a moment and jot down what you saw me communicate to the audience, just using my body without words. The way we use our bodies can have a significant impact on the way that the audience receives our message. And let's look at some of those messages which our body can speak without the use of any words. Before we say anything or even do anything, the way that we dress is important. Dress well and realise that the way you dress will communicate a message to your audience before you even open your mouth. Consider that a closed coat may communicate frustration or closedness, whereas an open jacket can communicate open-mindedness, fearlessness. Do keep in mind though that you need to dress in a way that is suitable for the occasion at which you're speaking. Now let's talk about the way women dress. We have mentioned before women with short skirts. Make sure that her audience didn't just remember her, but remembered, in fact, the message that she was speaking. Women, we wear makeup. Make sure the makeup isn't overstated but understated. We don't want it to become a distraction. A bit of lipstick is good because it communicates professionalism, poise, self-confidence, and that's what you want to put across. But make sure that your makeup isn't full of colours and things that will have the audience sitting there thinking about your makeup rather than you. Many of the things I'm going to talk about in this presentation are also elaborated by Alan Peace on YouTube. I recommend that you might go and have a look at some of those after you've watched this, if you have the time for it. Stride tall. Smile. Tallness communicates confidence to your audience. Now, what if you're not a tall person? Well, one thing to be careful of in that case is the size of your lectern. If your lectern is up here, that's a problem. If you have to use a lectern, have it in a place where you can still be easily seen, or perhaps move it down even more, and then consider where would you like to put it. Maybe if you put it to one side like this, you'd be able to communicate better with your audience and still be able to look at your notes from time to time. In this presentation, I'm going to ask you to do something with a partner. So just pause this again and go and find a friend and bring them into the room with you. Right, back again. Let's talk about handshakes. I'd like you to take your partner and shake his or her hand. Go on, shake, 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 shake. Right, now stop, freeze. Okay, now have a look. Whoever's hand is on top, that's the person who's decided to be the boss for the rest of this time. Let's talk a little bit more about handshaking. I'll explain with my imaginary friend. If both people shake hands like this, with their thumb in the same position, there's a communication of equality between them. But as soon as one person has their hand on top, that's communicating power. Now, what if somebody does that to you? They come and they shake your hand like this, or you just grab them by the arm and show your friendship, but at the same time you can turn their hand around. Pause for a moment. Try that out with your partner. A nod can be contagious. If you're asking a question of someone and you'd like them to say yes, just nodding, it's a bit like yawning. The people will start to nod with you, and you'll probably end up with their cooperation and their agreement to whatever it is that you need them to agree with. There are different ways you can nod, however. A slow nod indicates that you're interested in what's being said, and it encourages positive feelings in the sense of, please continue, I'm with you, yeah, I get what you're talking about. But what about a fast nod? Yeah. What does that communicate? Well, hurry up and get on with it. I want to have a turn to speak now, I'm sick of listening to you. That's a fast nod. A head shake. Now we all know what that means. No, it means no. It's not positive at all. It's a negative thing. Now, what if you're saying something positive with your words, but shaking your head? Yeah, I really agree with you about that. Interesting thing that President Clinton, when he was saying that he never had relations with that woman, did not once shake his head. Imagine this. I never had relations with that woman. Bit difficult to believe the words when the body is doing that. In Japan, a nod means I hear you. It's interesting to know about the differences in culture when we talk about body language. In fact, it's essential that we know these things. You see, you don't get a second chance, as we've said before, at making your first impression. In business, this first impression is a little bit like love at first sight. So if you're going for a job interview, think about the first impression you want to make, because that's the relationship you're establishing with your future boss. Now, this is especially the case, again, with women, because women are particularly good at reading body language. You think about it. Do you agree with that? If your boss is a woman, she's going to pick up straight away on your body language. Now, why is that? Well, back in the days when the men were going and bringing home the mammoth, the women were at home reading the body language of the children. They had to know whether the children were safe, whether they were happy, and they could tell just by reading body language. Mothers can read body language of their babies. They can tell if the baby is angry or hurting just by the way the baby's body is behaving. So that's a true thing. Women are pretty good at this. The body will communicate what's on your mind. It'll point to where you want to go. If I'm deeply interested in what you're saying, I will be drawn into you and my whole body will be facing you. But if I'm getting rather tired of listening to you, my eyes might start looking somewhere else while you're talking. And in fact, my body will probably turn away from you as well. I might look at you occasionally, but you can tell that I've lost interest when I'm no longer looking at you or when my body is turning to go out the door. And people will believe what they see over what they hear. This is what we mean when we say we've got this gut feeling about that person. One of my children once brought home a friend, and I had a gut feeling about this friend. It was very difficult to try to speak to my children about it because I couldn't put my finger on what the thing was that bothered me. But I did find out later that it was true. My gut feeling. There was something about the body language that told me something wasn't right. Let me demonstrate this idea to you. I guarantee that full participation in this course will ensure that you will have much better public speaking skills by the end of it. Did you believe that? What if I said, I guarantee that full participation in this course will ensure that you have much better public speaking skills at the end of it. Now that, I'm sure, is a lot easier to believe. Now let's try this with your partner. Turn to the person in your room and tell them a lie. Just tell them something that's not true. So I want you to use your words to say one thing, but your body say something else. Now that you've come back, discuss this. How did you feel? How did that get on? When the words were saying one thing and the body was saying another, as I just did for you before, you could tell, couldn't you, that it wasn't true. So the thing is that we need our body to agree with the words that we're saying if our audience is going to find us credible. Let me just rerun for you the entrance that I made at the beginning of this presentation. Hang on a moment. Well, what would you expect of me now? You see how the way that you enter makes a huge difference before you even open your mouth. Be your own visual aid. Yes. What do you want to communicate? Do you know that 60 to 80% of what we communicate is visual? And that's why there are so many email debacles. Because with emails, you can't see the person, you can't hear their voice, but you can't see their face either. And so when someone types out a message to you and you read it, you can imagine anything about what the person really meant if you can't see their body. So beware, carefully structure what you mean to say in email messages. And this is the reason why fortune tellers can do what they do. People who are fortune tellers are just very, very good at reading people's body languages. They can find out a whole lot about that person by looking at the way they behave. Remember we said before about women being particularly good at this? Have you noticed how many clairvoyants are women? Let me tell you a little story. I used to go to the gym. I haven't been for a very long time. But I used to ride on one of those exercise bikes, you know. And while you're on the exercise bike, well, there's a big movie screen just up above. So just so you don't get bored, because you can be on it for a long, long time if you want to get fit. So I was looking at the movies, and up there was, yes, it was soap operas, but there was no sound. The soap opera's sound was turned down, and only the visual was there. I was quite entertained by this. Yeah, I could see what was happening. I could tell the storyline. I could see when somebody was telling a lie, or in love, or whether they were cheating on someone else. It was quite clear to see if people were happy or sad, disappointed, angry, just by the body language. You can try watching the football with the sound turned off. Now, can you tell which team is winning? Of course you can, by the body language of the fans. Smile at your audience. Use an animated face. Don't speak to your audience with a deadpan face, but smile. Now, you might be feeling terribly nervous. Smiling is actually a really great tip if you're experiencing nerves and having trouble controlling them. Why is this? Well, just simply turning up the corners of your mouth into a smile releases endorphin hormones. They're those feel-good hormones, you know, the ones that give you positive feelings. Yes. So if you smile at your audience, it'll actually help you to feel better, and then you'll be able to continue on even better than before. And smiling, besides, is a universal language, isn't it? You don't have to worry about there being any different culture where smiling isn't okay, because all humans smile. Just try it. Now, we have to be careful though. If I was to smile without my eyes, that would look very insincere. Look at this. You see, if you get those wrinkles at the side of your eyes, that's not a real smile. You don't believe me. But if I can open my eyes up, then my eyes look sincere as I smile at my audience. Eye contact is also most important to establish myself and connect with the audience. If I look directly at the audience, I'm showing honesty and respect. I'm building rapport with the audience. The eyes are the closest link, when you think about it, to the nervous system. So the eyes, they're like, people say they're like the window to the soul. They have a real close connection with who we really are. Now, it is possible to connect with a small audience and establish this individual eye contact with each and every member of the audience wherever they're sitting, just for a little while. Anything up to about 50 people, that will work for you. But if your audience is a lot larger than 50, you need a different strategy because you really can't establish that close eye contact with each member. And this is what you do. You divide your audience in your mind into different quadrants. So you have a quadrant at the back, that side, and the front here, and the front here, and another one in the middle. And then as you're giving your presentation, you just pick a person in each of those quadrants and look at them and address that person. And what will happen then, because of the size of the audience, is about 20 people around that individual will also feel that you are looking at them and establishing that close eye contact just with them. What you want to avoid is the oscillating fan effect, where you try to talk to everybody all at the same time, but you think you're establishing eye contact, but you're never actually connecting with any one person. Eyebrows. What does it communicate if I raise my eyebrows? Well, it could be surprise, it could be a sign of being submissive, or a greeting, hi, or I don't know. Yes, even the eyebrows can communicate so much of a message. Of course, we know about frowning eyebrows, what they can communicate, but eyebrows are a very expressive part of a face. The eyebrow flash. Yes, that can say a lot. But if I walk down the street and see someone I haven't seen for a while, I can, oh, hello, hello, yes, or hello. See what eyebrows can communicate. I had an interesting experience some time ago when I was driving my car. Now, you know how annoying it can be when you're just trying to merge with your car and the other person just will not let you in. What to do? This was a very aggressive driver. It was one of those drivers who drives to win. They want to get there first. Well, I just looked at the driver as I was driving my car and I raised my eyebrows and smiled. The driver let me in and in I went, no trouble. Oh, I don't know. I think if we used eyebrows, a lot of us could avoid road rage, couldn't we? Keep eye contact when using your notes and visual aids. Now, once again, if I had my lectern here and I was using my notes, every now and then I can be forgiven to look at my notes, but I would just have a little quick look and then continue to talk to my audience. You may or may not realise that all these presentations, I have got notes. I'm sure you would have noticed by now that every now and then I just look up for a little bit to see what's next in my notes. Yes, but don't stand there just reading out your notes and talking to the audience the whole time while your eyes are on your notes. No, have a quick look, see the next key word, and then continue on. Visual aids. Imagine I had a visual aid over here on the wall. As I'm making my presentation to you, I need to make sure that I keep that eye contact with my audience. And so I might gesture to something, and to make sure that I point to the right thing, of course I need to look at it, so. But then I look back at my audience as I explain. You might have a pointer, you might have a laser pointer, whatever you're using. Have a look where it's going, and then turn back to your audience so that you can address them and not end up talking to your visual aid, because that's no connection at all with your audience. Head and chin. What does it communicate if my head is tilted and my chin is down and or looking like this at you? Can you see that? Head tilted, chin down. Yes, well, what I'm trying to do is the Diana Spencer effect. Remember how she used to behave? She'd be looking always like this at everybody. It's the little girl look. Does that come across as a confident businesswoman? Does it come across as somebody who knows what they're talking about? So avoid tilting your head, chin down, because that's not going to communicate any kind of confidence to your audience. If you see your audience sitting with their head forward and their chin cradled in their hands, that probably means they love your message and they're really listening to you. So look for some audience body language as well. Next, we'll talk about neck and shoulders. If you speak with your shoulders forward, that communicates lack of self-confidence. But if you sit with your shoulders back, just that little movement from this to that can make a huge difference in the impact that you have on your audience. Speaking of neck, if I'm talking to you and I start to scratch my neck, that communicates something too, doesn't it? What do you think? Doubt? Uncertainty? Not sure about what you're telling me? Maybe not sure about what I'm telling you? Or maybe I've just got a pain in the neck. That is possible. The collar pull. Let's see, I've got a collar here. So if I'm talking to you and I'm pulling my collar, well, it's probably because I'm getting a sweaty neck, and that's probably because I'm telling a lie. I'm not really telling you the truth. So that's another little bit of body language that you want to avoid. And again, Alan Peace does speak about this, so have a look at what he says to you. It could also communicate anger or frustration. You know, if you pull your collar, my gosh, I'm getting sick of hearing of this. I'm really not comfortable with this message at all. That's the collar pull. There's the ear grab, or, you know, the rubbing the back of the ear. It's a little bit like, hear no evil. You know, I don't believe what you're saying, or maybe it means, look, I'm sick of listening to you and I think it's my turn to speak. Or it could be communicating anxiety. Gee, I'm really not comfortable with this. The shoulder shrug. I don't know. It could be, I don't care. My 16-year-old is very good at that. Care, whatever. Yeah, that's the shoulder shrug. Again, don't use that. And if you shrug your shoulder, it's about making yourself smaller. And so it takes away from that confidence that you could have as a public speaker. Let's talk some more about confidence. Open body, open stance. Stand tall, as we said before. Perhaps lean slightly forward to listen. If I want to hear what you have to say, and I'm standing back like this, you'll never get the impression I'm listening to you. But if openness, open body, leaning forward, now I look like I'm listening to what you have to say. What does that mean? Crossed arms. It means I'm not receptive to anything you have to say. And if I speak to you like this, then it reduces my credibility to you as an audience. I look as if I have a negative attitude when I stand with my arms crossed, particularly if I'm standing on one leg. And it's a sign of defensiveness, being ready to battle or protecting myself or from what it is that you have to say, or perhaps I'm just nervous and afraid of my audience. And if you feel that way, once again, what do? You smile and you open up. And you'll soon find that those nerves, you can control those nerves because you're deciding to do something different with them. Keep your hands away from your face. Let's have a look at this. If I'm scratching my nose, covering my mouth, that conveys that I'm probably lying. You know, little children, no, mummy, I didn't steal the biscuits. Yeah, I've just told a lie. Oh, oops. So it's a bit of the Pinocchio effect. You know, if your nose starts to tickle, it's probably because it's grown longer. So keep your hands away from your nose and your mouth. Fingers in mouth. What does that convey? Possibly deception, or maybe that I need assurance. I'm not really sure. Again, hands away from face altogether. Let's now look at the other end of the body, the legs and the feet. With visual aids, one of the things that easily goes wrong is people cross their bodies. They cross their leg, they cross their arm, across themselves to indicate their visual aids. Be careful if you're using visual aids to do it with an open stance and don't cross your feet, because that has the same sort of effect as crossing the arms. All right? Keep the feet apart, uncrossed. Talking about visual aids can actually increase by about 50% the effectiveness of our message. And I'm told that we could save 28% of our time if we use visual aids in our presentation. There's only about 10% retention of the message when it's verbal only. So that is, if you see nothing, you don't see the speaker, you see no visual aids. So if you're using visual aids, do use a pointer so that you can again connect with that and connect to the audience with your visual aids. But don't let the visual aids upstage you, because you still need to be the main attraction. Hands. Hands have a lot of nerves in them, and they have more connections with the brain than any other part of the body. And that's why they are so effective in communicating, and why most of us can't totally keep our hands still and do nothing with them at all when we are speaking. The audience retains about a third more of the information given when hand gestures are used to increase the audience's recall. It helps them to remember what they heard and saw when you use your hands for the message. Palms up. Palms up conveys, I'm no threat to you. I have nothing to hide. Palms down. That communicates something different, doesn't it? Yes, this is why Hitler used it so effectively. Dominance. But open palms communicate truth. They communicate honesty, allegiance, submission, encouraging others to open up and have a go too. This is all palms up language. When a person makes an oath, they put their open palm on their heart or on the Bible to communicate their sincerity. Hands in the pocket, however, if I've had pockets, communicates, I don't really want to talk. I'm standing here, I have to give this talk to you, but I wish I wasn't, and I'm feeling very, very uncomfortable about it. Similarly, hands behind the back. Now, people who are nervous will often put their hands behind their back, and what are they doing? They're either holding on to themselves because they're so afraid, or yes, crossing their fingers because it's not honest. So hiding your hands communicates to the audience that what you're saying might not be completely honest or true or sincere. So again, if you find yourself doing that, as soon as you do, move those hands back away from your back and get used to leaving your hands just hanging by your sides unless you're making a purposeful gesture that you deliberately intend to do. Something to avoid with our hands is pointing. Now, why is that? When we point, we have our fingers closed. Look at this. And usually if you're pointing, there's other fingers pointing back at me anyway, which is an interesting thought in itself. But usually it's a closed fist, right? And we want to have open hands instead. But pointing is very confronting. If I tell you something like this, that's very confronting. If I wanted to gesture to you, rather than pointing at you, why not do it this way? Again, open palms. So if you want to say you to the audience, open up or indicate some other way, but you can see very clearly what you feel like when I point to you like this. Rubbing palms, that communicates a message as well. And it is the difference in how fast you rub your palms. Fast rubbing is, oh, I'm going to get something out of this, it's my advantage. But a slow rub is, oh, I don't know, I think you're going to get the advantage now if I rub my hands slowly. Thumbs and fingers rub. Rubbing your thumbs and fingers together, what does that communicate? I'm thinking about money. So if you don't want to communicate money, it might be a better idea not to do that one. The fist point, beating someone into submission. There's another way to communicate. Now, it may well be that in your presentation you want to do this to bring home a point, but just be aware of what your message with your body is saying to the audience and make sure it matches up with your words. The OK signal, another bit of body language. We all know what that communicates. Something else not to do is gripping the lectern. If I'm not confident, then standing there hanging on to the lectern in my speech shows that I'm not confident, and usually I'll be hunching up my shoulders as well. So again, don't grip on. If you have a lectern, don't hang on to it. Just stand like this. Free your arms. Don't hang on to it. Hands in the steeple position. You've seen the boss? You've ever gone for an interview with somebody who's sitting there like this? What does that communicate to you? Smug, arrogant. Women will often have this lower steeple position, which communicates something different. Listening, or even more listening like this, something women are good at. In any case, my advice to you is to keep your hands free. We haven't mentioned this yet. There are some speakers who will stand in front of an audience and grip onto their hands, and they might not be behind their back, but they're in front of them, and they're hanging on to themselves for dear life. Or sometimes they might be doing the same thing over and over. Now that would become very distracting to you if I kept doing it for a long time. So once again, don't cross your hands, don't hang on to them, but just let your hands hang from their shoulders, which are nice and back and not hunched forwards. Don't have a pen in your hand. Some speakers I've seen, they have a pen, they keep clicking it. Terrible distraction for the audience. Don't lock your hands, don't have a pen. Let's now talk about stance. We stand upright and tall, as we've said before, and the gestures we use are deliberate. They're not random, they're not distracting. We use them to punctuate a message or to do some other very specific things. For example, we can use gestures to be descriptive. We can talk about numbers. There were 3 main points in the speech. We can talk about the size of something. Did you see this fish that I caught? It was this big. Or we can use descriptive gestures about how heavy a thing was when we picked it up. Or we can communicate how far something was. It was way off into the distance. They're all descriptive gestures. Then there are emphatic gestures, where we underscore words to make sure that the people have understood what we mean. Or we can convey emotions of anger with our hands, or pleading. And these are all emphatic gestures that we can make with our hands. Then there are suggestive gestures, the ones that convey ideas or emotions, like the V sign, or as we've mentioned before, the OK, or the shrug. These are all suggesting ideas and emotions with our bodies. And finally, the gestures that prompt. And this can be very handy for an audience if you're trying to get a response out of them. Say, for example, you're the MC and you'd like them to applaud the person you're just introducing. You will leave the applaud and there's a gesture straight away there, and the audience will follow you. If you want them to stop applauding, well, you could do it that way, or you could do it like this. Any kind of hands up gesture will indicate, please stop, or shh, tell them to be quiet that way. If you are asking the audience a question and you'd like them to show hands, it's always a good idea to raise your hand. So if I asked you, how many of you think that body language is an important thing? I put my hand up and that will key you in. And it's really interesting to know that if you ask the question of the audience and you don't prompt them by putting up your hand, most of them will just sit there and look at you. You won't really get an answer from them. The use of space. I once heard a presenter say, use all the space that's allocated to you. So once again, the way that you walk onto the stage, filling up your space rather than not using that space that's allocated to you. If you want to identify with your audience, move closer to them. Then you really get this connection with them. People who speak and want to stand right back here and not get anywhere near their audience will have a lot more difficulty connecting than those who move closer and get intimate with their audience. We've already mentioned how the lectern can be a barrier. I hope you've got that idea now. If I stand here and give my whole entire presentation with a lectern because I need notes, then I've got something that stops my connecting with you. I hope you can see that. So if you do have a lectern, then work out how you're going to use it to put it to one side, and then you don't have that barrier, but you can still see your notes and refer to them as you need to. This is why we've said before that it's so important to check out your venue before you are due to give your speech. And if you have one of those big immovable lecterns, perhaps you can ask the people who run the place if you could please have something more portable so that you can just have this ability to make that connection with the audience. Or better still, don't have notes. If you know what you're going to talk about that well, all the better. Hands on hips. What does that communicate? Well, I'm certainly filling up the space allocated to me. In fact, I'm probably filling up rather more than the space that's allocated to me. This shows I'm assertive. I am ready for a fight, ready for action. I'm appearing bigger, more like an achiever, and I'm trying to dominate you and make you feel small if I stand that way. So again, if you are speaking to an audience, please avoid this kind of stance. Use the space allocated to you, but don't try to fill it up too much. Avoid pacing. How would you feel if I was giving this presentation to you all the time and pacing backwards and forwards like this? And look, I'm sure that you've seen presenters who do that. It's usually because they're nervous, but this is not something you want to see because it will make you feel seasick. And that is the effect that it will have on your audience. By now, you're probably relieved that I've stopped pacing backwards and forwards. Stillness, calmness, that's what you want. Think of James Bond, 007. Yes, this calm stillness in the face of trouble. Or Jim Carrey. Well, I'm not going to try to imitate him, but you get the idea. The exit. How do you leave? Well, a good handshake with the MC, I would think, and then turn and leave. An interesting thing, check to see that the backs of your shoes are shiny. People often forget that, and if it's the last thing the audience sees, they may just remember that. So shine the back of your shoes as well. Turn, smile to the audience at the end. Fake it until you make it. If you're not sure, use your body to make yourself look confident and look at ease. Just pretend. And you'll find that after some time of faking it, you will be making it. You'll be feeling every bit as confident as you're pretending to be. People will believe what they see over what they hear. Your body needs to be saying the same message as your words. Make your own body your best visual aid. Think about it. Your body needs no batteries. Your body is reliable and it's portable. Make your body your own best visual aid. So tell me, what do you want your body to tell your audience?